Hello, I'm Yossi Goslin, NBA salary cap analyst. You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, all under my name, Yossi Goslin. You can also subscribe to my salary cap newsletter, Third Apron, and check out all my salary cap information on capsheets.com. I've been doing these offseason previews for each team as they've been eliminated. And just a quick little programming note in case you haven't seen my previous episode yesterday. I now am differentiating when I do a podcast with a guest like this versus when I do my salary cap analysis type videos that you might be more accustomed to back in last offseason and ahead of this year's trade deadline. So this is a podcast and the other ones are a salary cast. So just a little thing. There's a playlist. I'll have all of them collected in each one. And today we are going to talk about the Lakers. We're mainly going to just get into the ways they could improve the roster because that will be the primary goal. And today joining me, I've got one of the most passionate Laker guys out there. You can see him talk regularly about the Lakers on the Lakers Lounge podcast. Anthony Irwin, how are you doing?
You know, it's funny. We said we were going to do this, and we were going to forecast the Lakers offseason, right? And we're getting ready to do it. We are coming off of, I live in Austin. I'm not exaggerating, the most beautiful weather weekend I have had out here in 5 years. And then the day that you and I say that we're going to be doing this, we are having a biblical storm. So I feel like that's a perfect, kind of table setter for some of how I feel about the state of the Lakers.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got to be a little mixed, but I think mostly positive just given the trade. So, I mean, let's just get to that. I mean, how are you feeling about the Lakers season after this really amazing regular season? But then also, a pretty quick, to me, unexpected exit from the playoffs.
Yeah, it's complicated because you're right. Winning 50 games, landing Luka and kind of cementing the next era of Lakers basketball is obviously a big step in the right direction. But at the end of the day, the Lakers fans, we all define success and failure by what a team does or what this team and this organization does in the postseason. So when you're a 3 seed and you fail to even make it to the second round, you can't even get to May. That's a disaster season. By typical Lakers standards. Now, I do think we grade this more on a curve now because since Dr. Buss's passing, Jim and Jeannie have been pretty inconsistent as leaders of the organization, and I think a lot of, especially younger Lakers fans, tend to kind of give the Lakers a little bit more grace. We're also in a different era of the NBA and of professional sports where there aren't Ted Steppians of the world who made it so easy for the Lakers to have as much success when I was younger. So I don't know. I still say though that not making it to May and also showing as little fight as the Lakers did in that series when you're losing in 5. That game 5 was a blowout in every other way but the final score. And yeah, I just think there's a lot that the Lakers need to address here, not just in terms of the roster, but culturally. They play a very entitled brand of basketball. And if the situation isn't absolutely perfect, and even sometimes if it is, they seem to take some of this the level of competition for granted, and they need to nip that in the bud.
I'm with you on most of that. For the most part, as far as their early exit, I didn't come away feeling like the Wolves were like that outstanding. I think so. I'm a little more concerned about the Lakers, how prepared they were. They just did not seem prepared. They got exposed pretty quickly. So I kind of starting to wonder, are they really as close as we all thought they were earlier? At the same time, I think, as disappointing as this playoff exit is, the seedings are a little jumbled, kind of similar like 2023. So, it seems like a lot of these teams are just a lot closer now, a lot more parity this year compared to last year. But just I would, if I'm a Laker fan, I'm definitely coming away more positive because you had a really good regular season that definitely more higher above expectations people thought. And the Luka trade, you just completely reset your window now and your next 7+ years, hopefully. So like I would imagine the fan base is still like more positive, more rejuvenated, if anything. I don't think anyone was saying that the LeBron AD pairing had reached its ceiling or anything like that. But even if they still had like another, a couple more runs in them, they were probably reaching its peak anyway. So no better way to reset the timeline than this. Not many other opportunities I think out there that could have better done this. So, I mean, let's just get into a little bit about Luka. We can get through this quickly. So they got him without any assurances that he's going to extend this summer. He's got that player option for the following season. He can opt out, become an unrestricted free agent. So he's going to be extension eligible this summer. There's a couple ways that he can go about. I mean, I feel pretty good that he's going to stick around. Do you think there's any possibility he doesn't extend, or will he take some form of an extension?
I I kind of think he wants to see what the Lakers are capable of. And you know, life happened so quickly for him this last season that it's like let's just kind of take a beat and you know, see what the Lakers are you know, the type of roster that they build, the type of coach JJ Redick is, the amount of leeway that JJ Redick gets if he isn't it, right? I think there's a lot there that he needs to find out, and might, you know, just decide that he wants to find that out over the course of this upcoming season. That said, you know, Luka wasn't exactly always in the best situation in Dallas, and was still ready to be there for his entire career, and was clearly devastated when they traded him. So he's a very loyal guy, and might not seem to care about, you know, some of the Lakers' shortcomings as an organization. So I could also see him signing that extension and declaring that he wants to be a Laker for life. Since he has been in Los Angeles, he has been nothing but the best kind of Lakers citizen that you can be. Has taken many opportunities to go out and do stuff in the city, and you know, before Game 5, I think it was, paid for the Kobe and Gianna mural that was defaced. He paid for it to be renovated by himself. So yeah, I could see it going either way. If it were me personally, I would, you know, having paid attention to the Lakers for as long as I have and for as closely as I have, I would want to make them kind of prove that they are going to run things the right way for me. But if he decides to take the extension and you know, take like a 3-year deal so that he could get back into the super duper max range by his age 29 season, I could see that playing out too.
We both share a conspiracy theory that perhaps the Lakers went into the Mark Williams trade like unfaithfully, just to kind of show Luka, hey, like, we're aggressive, we're going to do what it takes. Yeah. Jokingly, we thought about that, but yeah, I do think there is still going to be some wait and see what else the Lakers can do to build around Luka. The one thing that hasn't really been mentioned about his extension is that he doesn't need to sign it immediately once it's available. He can do it, like, honestly, up until the end of next season. He can that requires him opting out and doing that. He can do it like into the season. So if he wants, he could really put the pressure on the organization to see the results that he, you know, was hoping for. If he needs to see a little bit more, or do whatever moves it takes. Yeah, there's already a lot been reported about, like, the different types of extensions he could do. He can do the full 4 years. Seems like most likely the most logical way would be to do the Donovan Mitchell plan, where he does a 2+1, which is also known as the Bradley Beal plan, where they get as much money as they can through year 10. After that, you could get the highest form of the max, and you could recoup a lot of the money that he didn't end up getting from his supermax with the Mavs. So it's also worth noting Dorian Finney-Smith, he is currently extension eligible. I get the feeling he'll opt out and re-sign. I think they'll bring him back as well. So I would say, yeah, at some point, I feel still pretty confident in the end that he will sign some form of the extension, likely the short-term one. And the one thing the Lakers have going for them, and specifically with Luka and Stars, is that while they have made their fair share of mistakes over the past year, mostly around like the margins, they have been pretty perfect as far as taking care of their stars and making them want to stay just throughout their history, and even post Jerry Bussey era. I guess the only exception is like Dwight Howard in 2013, but that just seemed like a whole like. But then he wasn't really like at that level anymore. So I'm pretty confident that they'll do what it takes, and he'll probably stay at least for the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if Luka was not a Laker for at least the next 4 or 5 years. If after like 4 or 5 years, he kind of looks around and says, hey, if the Lakers don't find him a superstar after LeBron, or if this next offseason goes really poorly, or he doesn't like the amount of heat that he gets from a rabid Lakers fan base, maybe that plays a role in it. But I would be pretty shocked if I've seen a lot of, especially Mavs fans, after how that series went, a lot of people saying, oh, well, now you Lakers fans deserve to lose him because you criticized him for being out of shape. And it's like, okay, but if you're gonna leave because a fan base wants you to be in shape in the postseason, then you're kind of proving the point, right? So I still keep coming back to, he has said that he has loved being a Laker to this point. He said it after the series, immediately after it was over, even when emotions and tensions were at their highest. JJ Redick said that Luka really wants to be coached. We'll see to what extent that remains to be the case. And we'll see what kind of roster the Lakers are able to put around him, given how little they have to work with. They only have one first rounder that they can trade this offseason. They can do pick swaps, but pick swaps are pretty valueless when you have Luka and LeBron on your team right now, and Luka on your team moving forward. You have only the number 55 pick in this upcoming draft here that you can work with. Now you do have movable contracts, and you do have some players who I think have some value around the league, but then you're messing with your rotation, right? So, yeah, the Lakers have a lot of work to do, and I'm of the opinion that the Lakers gave Rob Pelinka his extension a little early. I would have maybe preferred to see what he did as the president of basketball operations in this offseason before we declared him, forever emperor of the Lakers or whatever we're calling him. But yeah, I would the Luka going places or leaving right now, I just don't see that in the cards. Even if he doesn't sign his extension, and even if he wants to apply some pressure, the Lakers are just coming out of a relationship, or they're in the final chapter of their relationship with LeBron James. And for the last few years of the LeBron James era, the Lakers have looked him square in the face and been like, you want to leave, you can leave. That's your call. And I think the Lakers might take a similar stance with Luka, where it's like, all right, you want to leave. Just so you know, Luka's probably going to set records next year for jersey sales. You don't do that in very many other markets than the Los Angeles one. Kobe was a billionaire by the time he passed away. Magic is a billionaire. Shaq is on his way to being a billionaire if he isn't one already. LeBron understands the value of being a Laker post-career earnings-wise. And if the Lakers go to Luka and be like, hey, here's our track record of what superstars are capable of earning after a successful tenure with the Lakers, you can do that too. We'll be here to help you make that type of money during and after your career. And we'll see what Luka, how well they work together to arrive there.
And I think for the most part, you're just heading. You kind of have the right mindset about this. The Lakers have to have a good amount of caution as far as how to navigate this. Can't expect him that he will just take the extension. They got to operate as if, for some reason he might not. Not a lot of. It's still early to tell what the free agency market is in 2026. Like him and Fox could technically still be the top free agents. Teams could be like the Spurs or Heat. So I just think for the most part, like, Luka just doesn't seem like a guy who's looking around like that.
Yeah.
He seemed like he was going to take the extension with the Mavs, despite like having a very poor relationship with management on all sorts of levels. So I just think in the end, I feel confident that they'll at least do everything they need to do it right. And then at the end, I would still envision the result he resigned. So let's touch on the actual like off season, like actual moves. You touched on what they have available, their picks and swaps. I'm trying to think how to like touch on this first. I think I want to quickly first touch on the LeBron situation, just because it could impact what their cap situation is. Because right now, as I look at things, I'm looking at their cap sheet right now. You can see it on capsheets.com. They are projected to be like right under the tax, right under the first apron, with 12 players under contract, assuming LeBron opts in to his $53 million player option. Unlike last offseason, they were basically pushing up right against the second apron. They were above the first apron into the tax, so they didn't really have that much flexibility. So I do wonder if there is still a possibility LeBron takes some form of a pay cut. The big difference is that since they're already well below the apron levels, there isn't as much of an urgency to do that. If like the sole purpose is that they just want to at least stay below the second apron, then they're already there. But I'm curious, have you thought about like what it would take for him to take not like a huge significant pay cut, but just something that maybe opens up a little bit more flexibility? Would it have to have someone like he particularly likes already like on the way? Or maybe he'd be open to helping the Lakers keep that flexibility into the season for a potential trade later.
So I'm going to go back really quickly to last season in a conversation I had during the season, and while kind of the Bronny hysteria was at its highest, right? And a conversation that I had with somebody who I really trust with Lakers information was that the Lakers aren't planning on him to take a pay cut, but they also understand that the thing that he wants most from the last chapter of his career is to win a championship with Bronny on the team, and to be able to celebrate a championship with Bronny and with his son on the team. And essentially the crux of the conversation therefore was, well, if he was willing to help us out a little bit this last off season, and we weren't all that close to winning a championship, if we're able to position ourselves so that we are actually closer to winning a championship this upcoming offseason than we were last offseason, and we go to him and we say, hey, this is a move that we think gives us a legitimate chance at winning a championship, the most legitimate chance we've had in however many years. I think this person told me that they thought that conversation would be fairly fruitful. The biggest thing is he needs to see the work. He needs to see the name. He needs to see how this player would help the Lakers win said championship. And if he believes in that player, whether it's a player brought in via trade, I don't really see many players on that level in the free agent market in the way that we saw last year when you had James Harden and Klay Thompson. And hilariously, Jonas Valanciunas was thrown in that list too. But if the Lakers basically say, "Hey, if you give us a little bit of leeway here, and we make this trade, or you help us make this trade, however you possibly can," what do you think about that? And I think that's the version of the conversation that Lakers fans should be hoping for. But the idea, and Jovan reported on this for The Athletic, the idea that LeBron is going to go into the offseason telling the Lakers, whatever you need, guys, and for whoever you need it, I'm here for you, buddy. I don't see that playing out that way either. So it's gonna take some selling on Rob's part. It's gonna take some creativity on Rob's part, and it's going to take LeBron being open to the idea of, okay, here's how much. Now, I will say to the fans who were going into the season hoping that he would take like a 10 to 20 million dollar cut, that was never going to happen. That was never in the cards. You know, I had some people saying, well, what if he takes something close to the mid-level? What if he takes that? I was like, would you give up $50 million to like you remember he has visions of being an NBA owner when his career is all done, and you can't get to that level of wealth just giving away $50 million. So I think the kind of pay cut that we're probably talking about here at best would be like 8 to 10 mil. And that's if the Lakers, show him the work and would be bringing in another all-star, a previous all-star, who LeBron would give the sign-off on.
Yeah, you mentioned the names that he would probably give the sign-off on. Harden, Clay, I think DeRozan was also possibly another one.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
But I don't even know how close that was. So eventually when I do a salary cast on the Lakers situation, I'll get into like the various forms of pay cuts that he could do to help them. But I'm with you that he doesn't need to take that big of one to give them like a little bit of flexibility. The main thing is that they're already got like basically their rotation back. Like their only major free agent is going to be Dorian Finney-Smith, as I mentioned, but he's probably not going to make like that much more. Maybe makes around the same that he's currently making. Other than that, they don't have any like significant free agents. So they're already like there. They're already like below the first apron. So like, one, are there any free agents out there or even trade targets that make it a little easier if having the flexibility gets you there? I'm sure like that's what he'd want to see on the short term. What I'm wondering is like there's a good chance again, like last offseason, they might not be able to get anybody. Now, would he want to take a pay cut anyway, like something down to like around low 40s range, just to give the Lakers a little more room below the first apron to do stuff? Because it makes a pretty meaningful difference as far as what they could do. For starters, if they're below the first apron, they could sign and trade for someone. They could acquire someone via sign and trade, and that's basically how they would have gotten Clay or Harden or DeRozan last year, because you got to stay below the first apron after doing that. If you're already below the first apron, you could also probably use the full mid-level on somebody. That could be for a big. I think they're going to need multiple bigs to fill out their roster, and we'll get to that next. Now, the counter to that is that the Lakers went into the last season like right up against the second apron. They had no flexibility. So like basically whatever trade they did, they needed to send out more salaries than they're getting back in. And they managed to get Luka Doncic that way. Now, granted, that happened because they traded Anthony Davis, who's making like, I believe the same amount. So you might not, now you don't have that same luxury of trading a $40 million player, assuming you're trying to keep LeBron and Luka. So it gets a little challenging if some trade opportunities come closer to the trade deadline and you're pushing right against the second apron. Now you got to cobble up together multiple guys making like, I don't know, 15, 13, whatever it is. So that's the only thing I'd push back is that on the idea that, yeah, like they were able to get away with the biggest trade in NBA history while being right up against the second apron and really having like very little trade flexibility to pull it off. But you never know what other trade opportunities, especially when it comes to improving the margins, could happen later in the trade deadline. So just because something doesn't happen in free agency doesn't mean that like he'll have wasted money by giving a pay cut. Like that flexibility could come to matter as we get closer to the trade deadline, which might again be the time when the Lakers are realistically able to strike again.
Yeah, that the nice thing that the Lakers have going for them right now is they do have several expiring contracts in that tweener stage, right? And historically, that was a great way to put together a trade package for teams. This new CBA, where you have these aprons and the finances have to be that much more precise, it does get pretty tricky to do what the Lakers are going to be looking to do. I've also heard some whispers about Kleba because he's probably the most popular contract that people are throwing into trades right now because he's somebody who wasn't in the rotation, and you could just basically, it would essentially be like a free agent acquisition, right? The one a little bit of pushback that I got on the Kleba front is that Kleba's Luka's guy. He really likes Kleba. Rob spoke at that exit interview about the different types of centers that the Lakers could go out and get. You have the traditional lob threat that they know they need with Luka, but they also like the idea of having a floor spacer. And the fact that JJ, despite Kleba never practicing ever with the Lakers, JJ also really likes Kleba. So I don't know that one of the kind of calculations that I've had to rethink here is going into this offseason. Oh yeah, just throw Kleba in there. Like that's a nice easy one. I don't think it's necessarily that simple. But yeah, I think the what the Lakers are looking to do and the amount of flexibility that they have, I think it's fairly likely Dorian Finney-Smith takes a little bit of a pay cut so that he can get a couple extra years or another year on his contract. So maybe that frees a little more flexibility up as well. And then, the other thing that the Lakers have to kind of plan for, have a tough conversation about is with Austin. And, he'll have a 4-year, $90-something million extension put on the table for him this summer that I think the Lakers would prefer he took, but I don't think he's going to take it. His camp seems to believe that he's worth well above that range. And seeing as he just had to take a pay cut because of restricted free agency, I don't think he's going to be looking to be giving too much money back to the Lakers on the heels of this current contract. And that's something else that they have to plan for here moving forward too. So this really feels like the offseason that they have to go out and do something. And unfortunately, I wish they had one more first rounder at their disposal or a few more second rounders at their disposal, because free agency isn't going to be a workable track for them. And because of the restrictions of this new CBA and how, we're talking about trades. If you pop on any trade machine right now, you have to come so much closer on trades to feel confident that that thing could finally eventually go through than you had to in the previous CBA. And that's not to say that it can't be done, but they have to be a lot more precise, and we'll see how well they manage that.
So a couple things there. First, just closing out the LeBron thing. It's not as necessary anymore as like it was last season for him to take any form of a pay cut. We'll just see what options are out there. I just wouldn't rule it out completely. It just depends who they can get. Reeves, he does have that player option for next year. He's extension eligible. Based on how he played this year, it's a 4. The max he can get with the Lakers is 4 for $90. That's well below his market based on how he played last year. I could see him getting something like in the high 20s, low 30s if he continues this level of play, which you would have to get in free agency. Now, it's worth noting that the Lakers could be cap space players in 2026 while keeping Luka on a max and having the ability to sign Austin Reeves. If we have enough time, maybe we can touch on that. But I would guess that's the more likely way they're going to end up retaining Austin Reeves. And then this will be a good transition to the trade market. You're talking about Maxi Kleba. So I guess there's a good way to revisit the Mark Williams situation, where I'm guessing that's going to be revisited in some way. I'm guessing that now their urgency is not quite there because 3 months ago, it was way harder to trade Maxi Kleba and Gabe Vincent, who, when they still had another year left on their deal, making the mid-level-ish type money. Now they're expiring salaries, so that's $22 million right there between the two of them that the Lakers could use to go and get somebody else. They can package those two together, maybe get like a big man making somewhere in like the $20 million range, something like that. But I want to start a little smaller. I think the Mark Williams trade will probably be revisited. The question is, can the Lakers maybe get him at something significantly less than what they were offering? How badly do the Hornets want to get off of him? So I guess we'll see. I also think this is probably like a similar offer. Now that we know that this trade was completed, I would guess the Lakers probably made that similar type of offer for Walker Kessler, who's also same draft class, about to have 1 year left on his deal, will be extension eligible this summer. I think the Lakers can get in on that if Walker and the Utah are very far apart on extension talks. And I think most likely they'll probably agree to something. But if they happen to be very far apart, maybe Utah's open to moving him, in which case I don't think that's such a terrible offer for Kessler. In the same vein, another big man in that draft class, Jalen Duren, but I don't think the Pistons will make him available. Do you think that at this point, getting a young guy that cheap for next year like that is like still like a kind of better likelihood possibility, or are they probably going to look completely elsewhere at this point?
I'm sure they'll call Utah. I'm sure they'll have another conversation with Utah and say, hey, this guy's about to get a lot more expensive for you, and you have to make a decision on, is this guy the center of your future? Now, some of the people I've spoken to around the league think that Utah does consider him a center of their future. He had a fantastic season last year. So I'm with you. I think it's probably likelier that they come to some kind of an extension agreement this offseason. Jalen Duren is somebody that I'm told the Lakers called Detroit about and were pretty quickly rebuffed on that front. And then the Pistons, took the Knicks to the extent that they did in that series and had such a fantastic season. So I don't think they're breaking up that core anytime soon. Maybe Isaiah Stewart is somebody that the Lakers kind of check in on as well there in Detroit as well. If, say, the Pistons decide they have to choose between those two guys and just see what that conversation entails, I think it's actually pretty unlikely that the Mark Williams conversation pops up again, because those waters are so thoroughly muddied. Both sides called each other liars for much of that, ever since basically that trade was rescinded. Mark Williams is there subtweeting the Lakers and celebrating their downfall. I don't think that's somebody that they want in their organization. And then look, he failed a physical, according to the Lakers. And I can't get into the specifics of what I heard about Williams and why he failed that physical, but I do think that there are some enough people who I trust who say that there was a legitimate physical reason that the Lakers rescinded that trade. And if you're the Lakers and Mark Williams, if he's like the centerpiece, no pun intended, of your offseason, and he gets hurt and misses a significant amount of time. Remember, while the Hornets were telling everybody, this guy's healthy, look how healthy this guy is, he still couldn't play on the second night of back-to-backs for them. So I do think the Lakers are going to be pretty hesitant to go there. I think Nick Claxton is another guy that the Lakers are going to kick the tires on. It's an annual tradition that they ask Indiana about Miles Turner, so I think that conversation will take place again. So I think the Lakers, I wouldn't go so far as to say that they have options, because all of those options that we talked about have significant hurdles that they would have to get past in order to bring those guys into their organization. It does make me kind of go back and retroactively wish they would have just drafted a center instead of Dalton Knecht. But you can't go back in time and fix that now.
So as far as some of those guys you mentioned, I'm looking at free agency a little bit because they've been linked to Brook Lopez recently. I'm just looking at some of the veteran free agents because it's like they're serviceable. You got guys like Al Horford, Steven Adams, Capella, like veterans like that. Might require somewhere between the mid-level. Maybe some of them can get signed for a little less. The thing is, like, I don't think that's quite enough. Like, if you can get one of those guys as a reserve, that's like good. That's one step of the way there. Like, I think they like got to completely change the center rotation, but they also need some upside, especially like at the whoever's starting, which is why I brought up some of those guys still on the rookie scale deals. They all still have like a good amount of upside. So you brought up Nick Claxton. That's a guy who a lot of people have been speculating that could be who the Lakers naturally target. I don't. There's a couple other guys I've seen people list. I don't see the Lakers going after DeAndre Ayton. It just makes a little too much for that. Even if it's just like for 1 year and they could get him to extend on something less, I'm not sure that's where the Lakers want to go. I've seen a lot of people hoping that the Lakers can get one of the Dallas bigs like Gafford or Derek Lively to pair with Luka. I wouldn't completely rule that out, just because maybe as the Mavs play next year, they might eventually get to the same conclusion that, hey, like AD, you got to play a little more center than what you're doing, in which case, why do we have this like logjam at the 5? Maybe there's something they could revisit. My biggest challenge for the Lakers is they only got that 2031 first offer. And while that's just one specific valuable asset, I think they ought to be very careful with what they do with it. When they made that Mark Williams trade, I thought that 31 alone was way too much for him. I remember texting you like something along the lines like, whoa, how did they just give up all that for him? So a lot of these guys that we just mentioned, I think the other team's gonna require that for sure, because that's all the Lakers have to offer. But in all likelihood, like whatever big they get, they'll probably be kind of overpaying, because like a pick that far out, even though they are going to have Luka Doncic most likely by then, those should be pretty competitive. It's still like a pretty good amount of value now. Then they do have multiple swaps, which you mentioned, you're not sure like they really have much value. We'll see. They have 4 swaps, I believe they can trade basically in all the even numbered years. The Mavs successfully were able to get Gafford last year for a swap. There's a couple other like moves happened recently with swaps. So I'm not saying the Lakers are going to get like a real, like, they're not going to get a starter with it, but if they can get like just something to help shore up the bench with a swap, maybe they come to value. Maybe they'll end up coming into play, because I do also think they could probably look to upgrade the bench a little bit. So that's kind of my thing is, in all, like, yeah, they need 2 bigs, I think, but in all likelihood, whatever trade they do, they're going to trade like whatever they can. They showed their card. They traded that 31 first for the best big man they could get. I just hope they could get a little more upside for trading a pick, in my mind, that is really valuable right now.
You also have to remember, Rob likes to go into seasons with a first rounder at his disposal. And we saw it last year, where, remember, going into last season, it was like, well, the Lakers, they could technically move 3 picks. Think of what the Lakers could potentially do with 3 first rounders. And Rob Pelinka even said, we'll have 3 first rounders at our disposal, especially on draft night, that we can maybe work with. And, we'll see what we're able to get to revamp the roster that way. And I think part of the reason that they didn't was because they didn't necessarily fully believe in Luka or in LeBron and AD anymore. So that was part of the reason. But every year that Rob Pelinka has entered a season, I believe he has entered it with at least 1 first rounder to be able to move. And he wouldn't be able to do that if they do move that first rounder this year. So I'm a little skeptical on the Lakers' interest in moving that first rounder. But if the price is right, or if the player coming back is right, then maybe they make that exception. I think that's where it gets kind of, we have to talk about Reeves as a trade asset and Rui even as a trade asset, because if you're trying to improve the roster to the extent that the Lakers know they have to, then and you're a little hesitant to move the 1 first rounder, then and you also don't have a ton of free agency flexibility, then what exactly is it that you're offering? And look, I'm told they love Austin. the player and the person. Rob Pelinka just called him a pillar of their organization. But I'm sure he felt the same way about Anthony Davis before they traded him. So I think we probably have to very seriously consider the likelihood or the possibility that Austin Reeves gets moved this upcoming offseason, given that he doesn't really fit well if the Lakers are going to commit to Luka ball. They need more perimeter athleticism next to Luka, both offensively and defensively. And again, Austin's about to get paid, so this is probably the high point of Austin's value with the money that he is going to be making in the upcoming offseason or upcoming season. So I think, man, I think it's almost likelier they move Austin than the first rounder this year.
So you just segued into what the last thing I wanted to talk about.
Perfect.
So trying to think how to start, but yeah, after the Lakers acquiring Luka, you just can't rule anything out anymore. I don't think we'd be doing this discussion a service without discussing the possibility of who is the next All-Star that they could possibly be in the mix for. And if they are in the mix for someone, I agree. They're probably going to have to trade Reeves, very possibly also in combination with that 2031 first-round pick. I don't think they're going to have enough for Giannis. I don't think they're going to really be in the mix for like that level of like first-team All-NBA guy.
That player would have to specifically say, trade me to the Lakers.
And even then,
like, that's the only way.
Yeah. But even then, I would be surprised if they can pull that off. But so I mean, let me. I'll just throw it out to you. Like, is there any All-Stars? They don't necessarily need to be like have even been like mentioned as potential guys that who could become available. What is the type of guy you think that it realistically could be acquired for that package you'd be willing to trade it for?
Anthony Davis. No. So I think so. I've thought of the interesting one is obviously Giannis, because we don't know what his future in Milwaukee might be. And if a superstar who has done as much for that city as Giannis has tells them, I want you to trade me to here, here, or here, and if those other teams mess around enough and the Lakers are able to put together a competitive offer for him, then it's something that maybe Milwaukee considers, and then hopes that they flip, Austin and Rui and whatever players they get back for more picks to kind of make up for the fact that the Lakers don't have picks. I actually think they probably want to keep their draft capital powder dry for after LeBron is done. So that would involve, maybe you trade a swap, or maybe the more that I think about it, I just find it really difficult to believe that they trade that first rounder this year. It's just not how Rob Pelinka has typically operated. And if you want to get the kind of player that, they can go to Luka and say, all right, here's your next star. You can't trade one first rounder this year. You need to use multiple first rounders years down the road. So that tells me I think it's probably likelier they hold on to the first in 2031, and then they get more clarity after next year on whether or not they send the pick to Utah. I guess one thing they could do with Utah in a Kessler deal is remove protections from their pick with Utah. Maybe that. But even there, like, if you trade for Kessler, you're now making that pick less valuable that you're sending to Utah. So it makes it kind of tough to square that one for Danny Ainge. So, and that was a factor, I was told, that it in those conversations that they had with Utah last year. So I think it's probably going to be more of a marginal move this year. I think they'll probably have to seriously consider moving somebody from their rotation, whether it's Rui or Reeves or Dorian or Gabe. The nice thing about Gabe is that he was pretty good last year, especially the second half of the season. So He's not the negative value that he was last year. I think he's probably a net neutral, if not positive, value heading into this offseason. Maybe you try to use those expirings and the number 55 pick, or say they buy a pick in the early second round of this year's draft to try to include in a trade as well. But those are the kinds of moves that I think are likelier than moving the 2031 first.
As I mentioned earlier, the Lakers could have not max cap space in 2026, but like significant amount. Now, that's not how teams are built anymore, at least right now with the rate of extensions happening. So if the Lakers are able to like utilize that cap space in a way, it's more so to like leverage a trade for a potential free agent. That like, hey, we have the credible threat to sign the guy, kind of like what the Spurs just did with De'Aaron Fox. I'll give you the type of offer I'd consider trading Reeves, maybe also the first four. I got to give credit to Sam Quinn, frequent guest of the show. He gave me this idea and has slowly grown on me. What if Jaren Jackson doesn't want to extend with the Grizzlies and they might have to trade him? I don't know if Reeves and the 31 first would even be the best offer for a guy like him, but I think that's the type of move where, okay, he's not like a top 5-10, like he's probably going to be all NBA this year, maybe third team. We know he's not like a top 15 player, but if you're getting an all defense level player that if you add in conjunction with an additional rim protector plus like another good solid backup big, I think you're finally getting the Lakers defense to the levels it needs to be above average to really overcome the defensive limitations of a Luka backcourt. At the same time, the theory of having Luka, Reeves, LeBron is that you can potentially have the best offense in the NBA with that 5-out rotation. Okay, you lose a little bit of that, but Jaren's still like a really good offensive player where you're still going to have a pretty top 5-ish offense, I would think. And, by, you're talking, you touch on like the potential fit long-term with Reeves and Luka backcourt, just mainly like, defensively for the viability in the playoffs. Yeah, there are definitely some questions there. So if you could potentially turn him into a defensive positive while keeping the offense at a high level like that, then I really feel like that type of move could push the Lakers into like really put them a lot closer to the championship contention I think a lot of us were thinking. Now, I'm with you at the end. That's just kind of like very speculative on my part. I don't even think a guy like Jaren will even be available. I'm sure he'll extend with the Grizzlies. Just an example of the type of the type of trade I would trade Reeves for. It's all unlikely though. I'm with you. In the end, it's probably gonna be whatever they do is gonna be mostly marginal. I also think they love Reeves that much that they want to keep him, try to re-sign him next year. And at the same time, though, I do feel that the Lakers are, despite what happened with the Wolves series, I do think the Lakers are probably a little bit closer than that series to where they need to be than that series might suggest. You also got to give them a little bit of credit. This trade happened in the middle of the season. It's Redick's first year. They're going to have a whole offseason to get a proper big man rotation. So maybe those types of tweaks are enough. Having the time to really be together might be enough to get the Lakers past the first round, maybe the third round. So after this discussion, I'm definitely a little more optimistic, even though there probably isn't some like huge pie in the sky type deal out there.
Yeah, I mean, the NBA playoffs now do really come down to matchups, and the Wolves were particularly well suited to guard the Lakers in that they have just this everlasting supply of long, switchy, athletic, and physical perimeter defenders, and then also the size to punish the Lakers for not trusting Jackson Hayes the way that they did over the course of that series. So maybe the Lakers essentially say, look, we're not going to overreact to a series against a team that we match up really poorly against. But that doesn't change that you match up really poorly against them, right? So, and there's a possibility that you see Memphis or Minnesota in next year's series too, or in playoffs too. So, they do seriously need to improve the center spot. And look, Rob mentioned how they need to get a big. I think that they need to get multiple bigs. And to that, point, maybe the Lakers consider Maxey as one of those bigs that they would be adding to the rotation next year with him being healthy. And again, that's Luka's dude. They came over together. The fact that JJ played Kleba in an elimination game without him playing, that indicates to me that either JJ lost his mind or he really, really believes in Maxey as a fit there. So maybe that's the big offseason acquisition that I wind up kicking pillows over this summer. But I just keep coming back to, like, if they do make a move, it'll probably have to involve that number 55 pick, maybe a second rounder that they buy in the second round, or they flip one of their expiring role players, rotation players. I'm thinking like Gabe. Maybe they flip him for a second rounder or something like that, so they can put together a more competitive offer without having to touch that first rounder for a different kind of rotation player for them next year. So it's going to be interesting. The one knock a lot of people around the league have on Rob is that his deals are very rudimentary. It's you have a need, I have a need, we get this trade done together. But I don't know if he's going to be able to operate that way this season, given how few assets they actually have to move.
Yeah, it'll be tough for the Lakers to get a real meaningful upgrade at the big without trading that first, because a lot of teams are gonna hold out against the Lakers, the so-called Lakers tax. Hey, you want our guy who's probably not as valuable as that pick? We want it anyways. What else do you have to offer?
Yeah.
So we'll
it's
see.
Also there's a lot of teams around the league who, on top of the Lakers tax, the Lakers tax is particularly high right now because teams are looking at them like, bleep you just got Luka for scraps. You're gonna have to pay the piper in some way, shape, or form. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of sentiment these other teams bring into these conversations or these negotiations. And Rob isn't a very popular guy with his fellow executives, as it is. The one of the few friends he actually had in terms of executives, he fleeced him for Luka. And so, poor Nico can't even show his face at Dallas games anymore. He has to watch from a tunnel. And that was a guy that Rob considered a friend. So yeah, we'll kind of see how that goes over.
Yeah, I mean, he technically did kind of pay the piper though with that Mark Williams trade. So maybe there is a repeat of that. Maybe not with Mark, but some guy along that level. Hopefully a little better, healthier, higher upside. But Anthony, that's about everything I've got. I think we covered pretty much thoroughly what the Lakers offseason will entail. Thanks for joining me. Do you have anything we should be on the lookout for?
I mentioned this in yesterday's show. We've partnered with the LFR pod and with Jovan Buha's pod for this Odyssey Lakers pod Voltron thing that I've been working on. And as a result of that, we're going to be doing these Great Western Forum pod episodes where hopefully you come on too and help us with some of the cap stuff. As part of these big kind of forum conversations about the state of the Lakers or wherever the conversation takes us. So we're really excited about that. Pete and I are going to be working together a little bit more in the upcoming offseason and heading into next actual season. So we're pretty excited about that, to bring that Locked On Lakers combination back that's all the good stuff there, man. We're just getting ready for the offseason. Hopefully take a little bit of a break at some point here, but we know the Lakers are never normal.
Yeah. No, and you can have me on anytime. I'm sure we'll be collaborating a lot more in the future. But thanks again, everyone. That's Anthony Irwin. You could follow him on Twitter, Blue Sky at Anthony Irwin LA. Check him out at the Lakers Lounge podcast. And what is the name of your new podcast?
It'll be on the same RSS feed, but the episodes will be called the Great Western Forum.
Okay. And so that's Anthony, and you all could follow me on my name, Yossi Goslin, on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all under my name, Yossi Goslin. Please subscribe to Third Apron. At some point, I do even more deeper cap analysis on each team's offseason. So hopefully next week or the following one, I will get into the Lakers maybe dive in a little more about like a LeBron salary reduction, trade stuff, all that. And keep checking out capsheets.com. I'll be updating it as transactions happen. They'll be updated up to date as moves happen. And I will continue be doing these team previews this week. I still not sure when the next one is. I know at least Thursday, but there's a good chance I'll be back tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Bye, everyone.